We want to be the peaceful guys who aren't doing that stuff and show and set a good example of what cannabis consumers are really like. Because people who smoke cannabis are not usually violent people at all. They're very calm, very composed, and that's why more people should actually smoke cannabis. And that's kind of the other thing that we're trying to do here is we're trying to legalize cannabis for everybody. We have a medical marijuana regime in Canada right now, and we have a government that said they're going to legalize marijuana for everybody. But unfortunately, the system that we have now doesn't work for the medical marijuana patients, and the government seems to be leaning towards a system for recreational marijuana that kind of models that medicinal model that doesn't work. We've already been to court fighting it. It's been shown in court to be unconstitutional or against the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that system. And that's a system where a few corporations, the LPs, would have control over the distribution of marijuana in Canada. Now, the LPs, there's only a few of them, and they have to send their marijuana through the mail. And unfortunately, a lot of these are owned by large corporations like Privateer Holdings in the United States, and these companies do things like irradiate their marijuana with gamma radiation. And so when you get it, it doesn't have any flavor. It's disgusting. It doesn't work for patients, and that's not all of the LPs, but the model itself is not fair and it's discriminatory. And unfortunately, it's this task force that's been assigned by Justin Trudeau just a couple days ago. Doesn't really, there's one person on it who seems like they're friendly to us, but it's mostly made up of former police officers, politicians, addiction specialists, and these types of folks who have for years hated marijuana and done everything in their power to stop us from having access to it. Now, these are the same people that are in charge of legalizing marijuana in this country. Justin Trudeau has put a former police officer, Bill Blair, in charge of legalizing, and a woman, Anne McClellan, who's a former politician with the Liberals, who has said marijuana is a scourge on society. These are the people who are going to legalize marijuana for us now. So, though there's some good news about this task force going forward, I think we really need to pay close attention to the kind of legalization we're going to get. And if we don't have a legalization that includes the decriminalization of everybody for using marijuana, and that means nobody goes to jail again for marijuana. Until nobody goes to jail again for marijuana, it's not real legalization. It's not. Justin Trudeau can say it's legalization, but it isn't actually legalization. What it is building a monopoly or an oligopoly of corporations and criminalizing the competition for doing the same thing. And the excuse that they're using is, marijuana that's grown locally, it's dangerous. You don't know what's in that stuff. It could be bad for you. You don't know what's in it. Well, we've been smoking it for a long time, and where are the bodies piling up from this, as David Malmo-Levine says? There's no bodies, there's no harm being shown from the massive amounts of folks who smoke marijuana now, and that's how they get it. So to just take a system and hand it over to these corporations is not the right thing to do. They need to legalize us. That's what they need to do, is legalize the people that are smoking it now. Because as Jody said, that's right, legalize the people who have made it what it is now. We wouldn't have the medical marijuana program we have now. We wouldn't have a politician talking about legalizing marijuana if we didn't break bad laws. The way we got to where we are now is by breaking all the laws, because we know they're wrong. So that's where, for them to exclude the people who broke the laws and actually change things is ridiculous. As Jody said, it's like legalizing gay marriage while still arresting gay people. It just doesn't make sense. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're showing this peaceful example to everyone, because we want to convince our politicians, like Justin Trudeau and these others, right now in this very critical period where they're listening to the Canadian population, or at least pretending they're listening. We have a lot of power right now to be able to make a difference and actually change what the system ends up as. Now, at Cannabis Culture, I'm the editor of Cannabis Culture magazine and Pod TV, and we've been, doing marijuana activism for a long time, but we're doing a new form of marijuana activism now, right here in Vancouver and in Toronto and anywhere else that we can do this, and that's opening marijuana dispensaries that sell to anyone who's 19 years of age or older. You don't need a medical card, you don't need a note from your doctor, you don't need permission from an authority figure. You can just come in, and if you're 19 years of age or older, you can purchase fine quality cannabis from us. And we do that. We have 3 locations in Vancouver and 2 in Toronto. Now, just last week, our location in Toronto was raided, and 3 of our employees were arrested there. the Toronto Police have been raiding lots of dispensaries. They raided 43 dispensaries and then hit another 4. And we were one of those 4 that they hit there. And the people that were arrested are going to face charges. And some of them are facing a lot of charges for trafficking marijuana. So it's really brutal. And what we did was Mark Emery flew out to Toronto the next day, and we opened the next morning, and we did 2 or 3 times as much business, maybe 4 or 5 times as much business, because we were on the front page of every newspaper in the country, and we were on television repeatedly. So every time they try and stop the right thing to do, every time they try and crack down on us, it just has the opposite effect. It makes us more popular and more known about. They can't fight the truth. They can't fight what's right. If we keep doing what's right, we will win. We will win. And so that's why we're going to keep doing what's right no matter what they do to us. They can come and try and close us down as they're trying to do in Vancouver right now. So in the city of Vancouver, Mayor Gregor Robertson and the city council, who was so commended for coming up with this medical marijuana program for the city, what it actually turned into was them charging $30,000 for a license, which is completely discriminatory and unfair compared to any other business license in the city, and making up rules that essentially eliminate 90% of all the dispensaries in the city. So that's not the legalization of medical marijuana dispensaries, that's eliminating them all. And only letting a few people who happen to have the spots get them. And that means eliminating some people who've been doing it for 15 to 20 years because they're too close to a school. Now, there's liquor stores right next to schools. On Denman Street, there's 2 liquor stores right next to a school, a restaurant across the street with a patio where everybody drinks all day. So the hypocrisy is very steep. And what I tell people when they come into our new medical marijuana dispensary on Davie Street that I've been working at is that we don't think that anybody should have to get permission from our government to use something that's safe and harmless. And you can use alcohol, and it is harmful, but marijuana is not. So we shouldn't have to beg to use it, or we shouldn't have to say, oh, this is, make up some reason. Even if you are sick, we don't believe you should have to go to a doctor to get it. You don't have to go to a doctor to get vitamin C. And you can tell the Toronto Police Chief, you don't need to test bananas to see how much potassium they have in them. You know, that's what it is with marijuana. It doesn't have harmful chemicals in it, so you don't need to test it. It doesn't make a difference. So we're going to keep fighting. Right now in the city of Vancouver, we have a campaign going on, and you can get, where are those Sensible BC, there's a Sensible BC booth right here, and they have forms right here about how to help save Vancouver's dispensaries. So you guys should grab these forms and grab these cards and call the numbers on them and tell them how you feel about this. And give them to your friends and tell them to do the same. And right now is the time in this country and in the city when we can actually make a real difference on what marijuana legalization is going to look like. And so we need to really seize it right now and not just let these corporations and politicians decide for us. Awesome, guys. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Love you guys. Happy Cannabis Day.
Happy birthday, Jeremiah Vandermeer.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you so much.